So whatever happens, one common observation is that the supply plan changes, right? So many people in the audience, you may be nodding your head if you are in the production, uh, you know, a product owner of a production line. You know that sales comes and says that, hey, can we make this change because there's an urgent requirement from a customer, right? So what do we do? So the goal is decide which demand to fulfill, when there is a priority in the, with the change in priority from sales. Um, so what do we really want to avoid when we do it, right? So first is this, that we cannot agree on everything because there's always a cost associated to change. So not reviewing the impact on the production plan in terms of capacity and materials, that would be a big problem that we all inherently know, right? And then what we often don't do, because the first point over here is something that any person in production or the supply side, they know it. They know it, and that's why they resist it. But what they often don't do is they don't evaluate the other options and inform sales that, hey, we can have a few alternative possibilities. The conversations that happen are, like I said a little while ago, that it's a repeated conversation, which is just about who has the last say. It is not revolving around discussions around what alternatives are available, what is the impact of some problem, how does it affect in terms of the overall costs. So those information are not available. So what do we do? What is the method here? So the method is this, that you assign priorities to products for resource allocation. Now you run a scenario. Now this scenario is not really your master production schedule, but this is only a scenario which you're running to allocate your resources based on the changing priority. Now you might alter the priorities on certain SKUs on a certain line, and you can compare different scenarios on the fulfillment and the production plan, right? So you may want to create these scenarios and say, if the priority shifts and certain product becomes a higher priority, and that gets the all the resources first, then what really happens, which other demands are not met, and what is the impact of it? So that visibility is given, that those scenarios can be compared, and you can go back and have those discussions, more informed discussions with your sales, right? So that's what we are saying in the results section, that you can quickly understand the impact of a production plan. When the priorities change, you can compare, you can provide options to sales team to make a choice instead of just a dry argument, and then you select the most favorable scenario during your demand supply review. So I'll show you an example here in the screen in the tool. So we are talking about an exception on a certain week. As we look forward, we are seeing that there might be constrained capacities because of a planned maintenance, and you might have no capacities in certain lines. So that is creating an imbalance of demand and supply. Now, not because there's a constraint, you cannot actually fulfill everything. So what do you do, right? Or there is a certain, it could be the other, the discussion, the example I gave was more of supply driven discussion, but there could be a sales driven discussion also, that certain products have higher demand and you want to meet it, and certain things can happen from the sales side. So net, it's a change in the plan. Now, what you can do is you can actually go and look at a product, the line that it's assigned to, the resources that it's assigned to. You can realign the priority, and then taking into account all these different capacity, the parameters, you actually see the impact on fulfillment. Like certain things might get fully allocated, some may not get allocated at all, some can get partially allocated. So this view is available from a fulfillment perspective. You can imagine, you can actually have a view on the resource side also. This is around product. You can actually have a view on the resource side also. Based on this particular plan, what is the utilization? Are certain lines overloaded? Are certain lines underloaded? So an exactly converse view is also possible to see, where you can actually see what is this view is for the fulfillment, the other view could be for the load. So taking these two things into account, you could actually compare and see what is a healthy mix. You have information, you can play around this information because these are dynamic screens. You can go change things and see the impact, agree on something, and whatever works best, you can take that information with the right assumptions, with the right awareness. So this is the concept of priority allocation.